Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the first episode of Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, short form NIICE UCAST. Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement is a research think tank based in Kathmandu, working towards bringing in research excellence in the field of international relations, security, and development. I'm Ashmita, a visiting fellow at NIICE, and I would like to introduce our guest today, Professor D Muni. Professor D Muni is an Executive Council member of Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies and Analyes, New Delhi. He is also Professor Emeritus at School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. For nearly 40 years, he taught, conducted, and supervised research in international relations and South Asian studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University, National University of Singapore, Banaras Hindu University, and the University of Rajasthan. Mr. Muni has also served as India's special envoy to Southeast Asian countries on UNSC Reforms and represented India's Minister of External Affairs at the 50th anniversary celebrations of Paris Peace Conference held in Cambodia. He was also India's ambassador to Laos People's Democratic Republic. In 2005, he was bestowed with Sri Lanka Ratna, Sri Lanka's highest honor for a foreign national. Professor Muni has done extensive research in Nepal, and he has been watching Nepal for decades now. He has also published a book titled The Foreign Policy of Nepal. And today, we are going to talk to Mr. Muni on current border issues between Nepal and India. Let me start by welcoming him to our session. And starting with the first question, after the inauguration of the link road from Darchula to Lipulekh by the Indian Defense Minister, the Nepal government raised a strong objection, and now Nepal has come up with a new map which includes Limpiadhura, Lipulekh, and Kalapani. How do you look at this whole border issue between Nepal and India?
Time to go into history, but one must understand history first. Here in this case,
yes,
you know the 1816 Treaty of Sogoli. Nepal had surrendered all the areas west of the Kali River, and that is mentioned in the Sogoli Treaty, which means the east of Kali River areas were with Nepal. But the treaty did not specifically identify which was the Kali River, and it did not identify which were the source of its origin. And this is where some dispute took place. Besides, I can also tell you, which many people may not be knowing, that in 1816 was the first draft of the treaty, which was negotiated and renegotiated because the King of Nepal wanted some more concessions, and the British agreed to give them concessions in the Tarai. So the whole question of give and take continued for almost 50 years, and the final document of the treaty was signed in 1860. And in that document also, in between the negotiations, it was very clearly said that we will demarcate specifically the areas. But that was mostly in reference to the southern areas, not to the northern areas. So northern areas were not specifically demarcated. And therefore, what you find is that the maps issued by the then British East India Company between 1816 to 1860, perhaps, have a location of the border in one way where Kali River is what today's Mahakali's origin is from Limpiadhura. Yeah. And then after 1960, there were maps where Kali River was considered what India considers it today, which was the lower one. Therefore, these areas were included in Nepal. Now, Nepal did not raise any objections, and I think British continued to use it for their trade and other purposes. And then it was this position which was handed over to India, independent India, I would say, by the British colonials when they left India. So for India, this area got as a part of 1816 treaty and its interpretation as the British had done in terms of inheritance. From then on, listen, I mean, 1860 to say 1980s, the mid-80s, there was not a word from Nepal on the maps in which this area was considered as the Indian area. Not only that, King Mahendra knew that there was an Indian military post, and there were other military posts also on the Nepal border, Nepal-China border. For military modernization of Nepal, there was an agreement under which India went there and set up all the border posts, border checking posts. But in 69, Kirtini the Bista was the prime minister, and again King Mahendra was there, said that you take all your military checkposts from the China border. So all the border checkposts were taken, which were on Nepal-China border, not this post. And that again, in fact, Rishikesh Shah is on record of having said that I reminded the king, and king said, no, leave that post as it is. Therefore, the king accepted it, Birendra accepted it, whole of Nepal has been accepting it. For India, it was not an encroachment into the Nepalese territory. For India, it was a territory which was handed over to India by the British, withdrawing British government. Now, therefore, India has been publishing maps accordingly. And the map which was published in November 2019, which some of the Nepalese, I would say some of the ultra-nationalists are taking objection to that, had nothing to do with this area. That map was published only to show the changed position of Jammu and Kashmir, because Jammu and Kashmir was earlier a new state, then it was converted into a union territory, and Ladakh was separated from it. So Ladakh had to be shown in that as a separate union territory, and Jammu and Kashmir as a separate union territory. No change, no alterations was done on the Lipulekh area. Okay?
Yes.
So the objections were taken. Now this road which you are mentioning, it is not an encroachment. As I said, this is a part of this map, and that construction has been continuing since 2006, 2007. It was sanctioned under Manmohan Singh government. Road was building. Eventually, it was completed. And I'll tell you why it was completed a little faster. It was completed. So when it was completed, the defense minister inaugurated it. It had no reference to Nepal so far as Indian thinking was concerned.
Yeah.
It had a reference, and the Chinese had accepted that Lipulekh belonged to India. Two agreements. You know, one agreement most of the Nepalese are mentioning, that is 2015. A joint statement by Prime Minister Modi and President and the Nepalese counterpart, in which it is said that we will have our cultural and trade exchanges through Lipulekh, accepting that this was India. It was a bilateral joint statement. But before that, in 1954, there is a famous agreement of peaceful coexistence on Tibet, in which also it is mentioned that the cultural and commercial relationship between India and Nepal in the Tibet area will continue with some checkposts, and one of the checkposts written is Lipulekh. Therefore, in 54, Nepal doesn't say anything. 2015, it raises an objection. Similarly, until the 80s, Nepal does not say anything. Now Nepal has objection. India has not altered its position at all.
Well, that explains the entire history of Nepal and also the historical background of the Kalapani controversy. Now moving to the second question. So how do you see the comment by the Indian Chief of the Army Staff? And he claimed that Nepal's protests are at someone else's behest. And the hint was, I think, towards China. And do you believe that the comment reflects the larger understanding of the government on the subject, or is it just a one-off comment from the Army Chief, sir?
Well, I'll tell you my understanding of this. Firstly, the Army Chief made a general comment in which first he said that this area belongs to India. And therefore, from our side, there is no dispute on that. We have been telling Nepal again and again. Then he mentioned that maybe they are doing at the behest of the third countries. He did not mention China. But let me be very frank that there is a very strong strategic community in India which believes that China is expanding its influence in Nepal. And therefore, China must be somehow encouraging Nepal to be against India. They believe it, rightly or wrongly. I am not going into that. Now, why do they believe it or why it is possible? In fact, I question them, but the overall understanding which comes, I want to share it with you and your viewers. The overall understanding is that China had in fact accepted 54 and 2015 as Lipulekh being India.
Yeah.
So openly and publicly, China cannot speak anything because they have internationally accepted that. Yeah. And you see the latest Chinese statement, if you have seen it, it shows very clearly, it advises Nepal to bilaterally resolve the matter through talks. Yeah. Okay. So publicly they would not say it, but what is happening in the last few years, two things are important here. One is the Chinese see that India is getting very close to the US and they don't like it. And this is a fact. The strategic relations between India and America have increased and become much closer than what they were there. Yeah. And the Chinese fear that the two countries together would probably create problems for them in Asia, and they are not happy with it. Secondly, India for the last few years is upgrading its defense infrastructure against the Chinese. Because India does not want to see the repeat of 1962. We faced a humiliating defeat and we don't want to repeat it. So they are doing it, and that infrastructure is upgraded, roads and communication systems and deployment of the armed forces at all. This is being upgraded in Arunachal Pradesh, this is being upgraded in Sikkim, and you saw that Doklam problem between India and China. Now there are problems in Ladakh, there are problems near Aksai Chin, and similarly this road now to the Chinese appear to be a part of India's defense structure to the Sino-Indian border. So they may not be happy. Since they are not happy with it, they would like as much opposition to India on these issues. They are bilaterally doing opposition. So here, the possibility of they encouraging Nepal cannot be ruled out. I'm not saying it is there. I don't have any evidence to show it. But it is a possibility which they strategic, and I think Army Chief's statement was in accordance with that probably can happen. One thing more. The Chinese have also become very active in supporting the United Communist Party of Nepal. And everybody, even in Nepal, I can show you many statements saying that the Chinese are supporting the present Oli government. And present Oli government is in a serious problem internally. There are problems from the Maoists, there are problems from Prachanda, there are problems from Madhav Nepal. And the Chinese would like this government to be stable and strong. And therefore, they are supporting their unity and probably would want Oli to continue. And in order to continue, if they see that India is being used as a bashing boy, so it's all right with the Chinese. It doesn't bother them. And they would like this to happen. So long as much Nepal goes away from India, it will go closer to China. So the China wants this to happen, and that may be a reason. I said I have no proof, but in a strategic analysis, this makes a lot of sense. And that explains the Army Chief's statement.
That was indeed insightful, sir. And we have understood by now from all your arguments that the issue is very complicated. But how do you think can we reach, a solution? How do we resolve this issue so that the relation between the two countries remain cordial?
Best way is to sit down and talk to each other. There is no other way. Nepal and India cannot fight with each other. One can't even dream of that, okay? By Nepal taking this to international court, which many people are saying, and some people in the Nepal are suggesting we must have a trilateral discussion. The Chinese have very clearly said it is not for trilateral discussion, it is for bilateral discussion. Okay? Therefore, the best way is for the two sides to sit down with their papers, with their documents, with their proofs, with their facts, because treaty is not the only issue. For instance, in that area, if you go today in the Kalapani area, some of the villages which are there, you ask the residents of those villages, they have Aadhaar card of India, they have Ration card of India. They have no access, no support from the Nepali government.
Yeah.
They have all the support from the Indian government. Now, if you see all these documents, collect your revenue, tax collection documents, and all other. So sit down with all that on the table and find out a mutually acceptable solution. I may say one thing more here. I think Nepal and India have surveyed their entire border.
Yeah.
And they have decided that the rivers will no longer be the defining for our boundary. We will have a fixed boundary. And in finding that fixed boundaries position, they have not agreed and resolved the areas in Susta and Kalapani.
Mm-hmm.
And they said these are 98% of the border is settled. Even technical initials, signatures have also been done. Politically, it is not final because these two elements are left. And they decided we should not change any status quo so far as these two dispute areas is concerned. Why should Nepal, by issuing its own new map, and it has never made any map so far, it has been using even those Indian maps which showed Kalapani as India's path. There are maps like that. So why should this status quo be unnecessarily disturbed? I don't understand. Yeah. And then Prime Minister has spoken a very hard language. I think that's not the way to answer. Sit down quietly, diplomatically, on mutual accommodation and mutual sensitivities and sort it out.
Okay, sir. And moving to the next question, sir. So there has been a widespread perception in Nepal that India intervenes in Nepal's domestic affairs and has even maligned the country's sovereignty. So do you think this perception has been successful in receding India's big brother role in the region? And if so, like, what do you think are the strong reasons behind it, sir?
Well, I'll tell you very clearly. Firstly, to begin with, I'm not very excited about these concepts like big brother. Mm-hmm. Big brother is a Western concept. Yeah. The Oriental concept is elder brother.
Okay.
And there's a lot of difference between the two conceptually. Mm-hmm. Because elder brother sometimes becomes very harsh to you. But whenever you are in need, whenever you are in a difficulty, the elder brother comes to your help also. The big brother doesn't. You know, big brother concept is very different. I don't have time, may not go into details, but therefore, I don't believe in big brother. But there have been occasions when India has been unnecessarily and I would say most undiplomatically interfering in Nepalese affairs. There's no doubt about it. The most ugly example of that was the interference in Constitution in 2015 September. Yeah. At a time when the Nepalese Constituent Assembly had already adopted the Constitution, then Prime Minister Modi sent Jaishankar, who was then Foreign Secretary, as his special envoy to say the Constitution should not be signed and you should include the Madesh interest and all that. Whatever right or wrong, again, let's not go into that. But that is not the way a sovereign country should act to another sovereign country, frankly speaking, or one friend to another friend. Yeah. And then when the Nepalese side did not accept that intervention, then came the coercive economic diplomacy, which all of you call today this blockade, yeah. The economic blockade, which has affected the Nepali youngsters, Nepali students, Nepali old people, Nepali government, everybody. And I think that was again a very absolutely avoidable action on India's part, which can be considered as an interference. Therefore, there are examples where India has not followed its policy very correctly and very judiciously so far as Nepal is concerned. And it has ignored Nepal's sensitivities, I have no hesitation in saying. But I think after these constitutional intervention and blockade, there was some realization in Delhi. And after that, I think since then, New Delhi and Prime Minister Modi is almost going out of the way in what you call assuaging the hurt feelings of Nepal. Yeah. And he has tried his best to cultivate Prime Minister Oli and our old projects which were not running well, are now being expedited. More assistance, 1,000 crore in the last budget year, not this budget year, were allocated for Nepal. This year there is a little less money which is there. We came forward on the earthquake and other issues which came up. We came forward so far as this coronavirus is concerned as far as possible. So India is trying to make a course correction. Now, when India is making a course correction and trying to what you call compensate for its earlier mistakes, I think this issue has been brought up by the, I would say, but mostly by the ultra-nationalists who are talking about Greater Nepal. Now, Greater Nepal was there only for 30, 40 years when the Gorkha kings run. What happened before that? Why not go before that? Why not go after that? You don't decide history like this, okay? And therefore, I think, unfortunately, while India has been trying to improve its relations with Nepal and compensate, I would say, and show its regret for past mistakes, I think this problem has unnecessarily been started.
Okay, sir. Now moving to the other question.
How many are left now?
So there are a few more questions, around 3, 4. Let's see.
Oh my God. Okay. I should be very brief.
I'll make it quick, sir.
No, I will be brief. You are brief already. That's no problem.
Okay, sir. So people believe that in recent times, there has been a very relative decline in the interventionist attitude in Nepal. Do you agree to this, sir?
Yes, there has been decline. That's what I'm saying. India is now correcting itself and completely withdrawn itself from any kind of what you call much closer relationship. And now you see, earlier it used to be Nepal, in India's ambassador who will go to different political leaders and, resolve their problems. Now it is the Chinese ambassador, which is going to different Nepali political leaders. So India is not interfering. India is, as I said, compensating for its past mistakes.
So you think then the interventions are there, but not from India, from other countries. So that's your belief for now. That's
well, whether the Nepalese call the Chinese ambassador role as intervention or not, I leave it to Nepalese. I don't want to say anything.
Okay, sir. And moving to the other question, how do you look at the overall Nepal-India relations during the Shri Narendra Modi tenure, and how is it different from Sri Manmohan Singh's government, sir?
Well, Manmohan Singh neglected Nepal in the sense of political equations. In fact, some of us have been telling Manmohan Singh that, for instance, after the victory of the Republic and the downfall of monarchy, Prime Minister should have visited Nepal or various other. I mean, Manmohan Singh did not visit for 2 decades. There no Indian Prime Minister visited. So there was a sense of neglect, there is no doubt, which was bridged by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And very warmly he was greeted in Nepal. You remember his first visit in the Constituent Assembly. Almost everybody said that, oh, now we have a great leader who will do it. But after 2015, the relationship started deteriorating. And we have already talked about that kind of a relationship. But Prime Minister Modi wanted to build on culture and build on civilization, build on religion, and wanted to bring the two people much closer. But I think on political and economic agenda, things have not gone as they should have gone. And that's why today we have a relationship in which India alone is not responsible. But, you need two to tango. Do haath se tali bajti hai. So that's what it is.
Okay, sir. And well, this question can be a little harsh, but I think it's important for people in Nepal to know. So one section in Nepal believes that BJP is not happy with secular Nepal, and they are working on the revival of the Hindu kingdom. So what do you think? Like, what's your take on this, sir?
I don't refuse that there are sections in the BJP who want to bring monarchy back and who probably would want to bring Hindu state. And we keep telling them that, look, Nepal has been a Hindu society for centuries. India has been a Hindu society for centuries. but India has not become a Hindu state. And Nepal became a Hindu state only under King Mahendra in 1962. And he made Nepal a Hindu state, not for any respect for the religion, but he thought that by doing so, he will get popular support. Because in Hindu religion, king is considered as Vishnu's avatar, the incarnation of the god Vishnu. And therefore, nobody would challenge him. And he brought it about Hindu religion. Now, that Hindu religion had not done good to Nepal. If religion or monarchy had not done good to Nepal. If it did good to Nepal, there would be no Maoist revolution. The Rolpas, the Dolpas, the rural areas, large sections of Nepal, except for Kathmandu, got neglected. They did not develop, and therefore people revolted. Now, to talk about that era, which did not deliver development to Nepal, is not good, not fair. And if you make any state having its identity on religion or any ethnicity, then that state will run into serious problems. If you want to see examples, see example of Sri Lanka. They are a Buddhist state with Sinhala ethnicity, and they have run into problems. Look at Myanmar on the Rohingya issue and other issues. Look at other states where minorities are suffering. You know, we are a mixed people, and let the state be secular, let the society have its own religion or whatever else it is. And this is not the period of the monarchies, and the military rules from South Asia have gone. And they cannot come. Nowhere in the world they can come. The monarchies could survive in the world only where they have conceded to the popular will. Therefore, there are some sections, maybe in the ruling party or even outside ruling party, who may have such dreams, but they are very irrational, they are impractical, and at least I am not supporter of.
Okay, sir, that was insightful. And so there has been many apprehension in India with increasing Nepal's engagement with China. So you have already given a brief about it, but I would want to know your take on this, sir.
No, I told you there is a fear. Yeah. And we see it. We see it in politics. We see it in the economic assistance program, BRI-like program. We see it in various soft statements here and there. So yes, I mean, that is an apprehension, particularly in the Indian strategic community, that China is getting deeply entrenched into Nepal, and they may use Nepal against our interests.
Yeah. Well, sir, and there has also been an array of accusations by the Indian media. While you have already said that there are some statements but no evidence to prove it, that media continues to accuse Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli of using China against India. So do you think these are false and unwanted accusations, or or is it just media trying to interfere with Nepal and China relations?
So using China card is an old politics of Nepal. Whenever they felt pressured from Indian side, they have used China. Mahendra used it. King Mahendra used it even through UML. Earlier, UML was made to counter democracy and whatever else it is. And in 2015, 2016, when Prime Minister Oli ran into problems with India, and I told you that India was at fault, what was his answer? He first went to China and made all kind of transit agreements, all to say. Now those transit agreements they do not make economic sense. They make a lot of political sense, because economically nobody is going to travel for 4,000 kilometers, and the prices of those products will go 4 times more, which will not sell in Nepal. So that's not an economic proposition. And I wrote even at that time saying that this is a political statement which Prime Minister Oli is making. And I think this is a belief that therefore China and Prime Minister Oli, and the proof now is evident in the Chinese ambassador coming and talking to the Communist Party leaders at a time when the party was in crisis, and when Prime Minister Oli was almost about to be, he was pushed into minority.
Okay, sir, and I have one last question for the session today. So all of us are stuck at home because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And how do you think is this pandemic going to affect the South Asia region and I mean in general and Nepal-India relations in particular, sir?
Oh, that is a big question. I have given an interview elsewhere on what happens, but COVID is affecting all of us.
Yes.
All I can say is we all should put together our resources. Here again, Prime Minister Modi made a good initiative by calling all the SARC leaders and created a what you call an emergency fund. I don't know how much Nepal has contributed to that, but some of the other countries, Afghanistan has contributed, Bangladesh has contributed, Maldives has contributed, and this whatever little resources we have, we must pull it together, whether in terms of doctors, in terms of technical people, in terms of scientific people, in terms of medicines and medical help, and try and fight this corona. At that time, no other issue should be given priority. But it is unfortunate that between two of the, I would say, the closest neighbors in the world, that is India and Nepal,
Yeah.
we have become so cantankerous towards each other unnecessarily on, I would say, non-issues. That's my view.
Yeah.
I mean, my Nepali friends would be unhappy. No, no, it's a great territory issue. I've given you the historical background to it. And we are not encroaching on each other's sovereignty. What is it? Nepal and India cannot feed their own people properly. Where is the need for us to encroach on each other?
Mm.
Okay.
Okay, sir. So, with the hope that the issue is resolved very soon, I would like to
Let
thank
us
you.
hope that. Yes, I
Yeah,
hope that.
thank you for your
And wish
valuable
that.
time, sir. And we are really grateful. And I hope you
No,
have
no,
a
no.
nice evening, sir.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.